All right, well, we do a news show. But we do it a little bit differently if you've noticed. All right, Casper, we've got amazing stories for you guys. We got odious stories as always, because it is the news. But we also have fun stories. Dolphins getting high.
That is my favorite story of the day. It really is. No, dolphins literally have a method of getting high, and they do, in fact, and this is quite literal, puff, puff, pass.
They do.
Yeah. Don't give too much away. Don't give too much away.
So I won't tell them that it's there's a war on dolphin drugs.
Don't let the government know. Those pharmaceutical companies, they'll end it.
Yeah, they're like, oh, dude, Trump right now is going, there's a lot of dolphins coming in from Mexico. We've got to build a seawall. Okay. Anyways, oh no, he's mentioned the word Trump. Okay. All right, we got a lot of stories as I told you there. Casper, take it away.
All right. The debate over a $15 an hour minimum wage continues. All of these companies that are having a difficult time luring workers back to the workplace because they refuse to pay a living wage continue to whine and cry about the difficulty of finding labor. And so Fox News, a reputable news organization, decided to tackle this difficult issue by bringing on a former Reagan economics advisor who, of course, said the most disgusting and deplorable things. Let's watch.
For those people, Sandra, who are coming into the labor force brand fresh, not old timers who've been around for a while, the poor, the minorities, the disenfranchised, those with less education, young people who haven't had the job experience, these people aren't worth $15 an hour in most cases. And so therefore, when you have a $15 an hour minimum wage, they don't get that first job. They don't get the requisite skills to earn above the minimum wage. And after a few years, they become unemployable. And after becoming unemployable, they become hostile. And that what you'll find happening is this technology has created an underclass of people who are really just bid out of the labor market and will remain out of the labor market for most of their lives. And this, I think, is just a tragedy.
What he's talking about toward the end there is what automation is doing. And he talks about automation essentially leading to unemployment as a good thing, right? Because this is how the market works, guys. This is the free market. I mean, you got bid out. I mean, you've been working at this job, you've been underpaid, and then you get screwed over with automation. And that's just how the free market works. It's just that we need government intervention in the quote unquote free market when, these corporations commit fraud or they fail, and then they need some liquidity from the Federal Reserve to bail them out. That's when the free market isn't the talking point that they like to use. But when it comes to wages, that's when they love to talk about the free market. And of course, who does and does not deserve a $15 an hour minimum wage, which at this point in most parts of the country isn't even a living wage. Okay, that's how much inflation has basically destroyed the current wages that we're earning right now, but further made it unlivable. Really, even at $15 an hour.
But let's not bury the lead there. He just said not only the poor and the young, but that minorities aren't worth $15 an hour.
Yeah.
He just said it. You could rewind the tape and watch.
I'm not surprised at all.
Minorities are not worth $15 an hour. And that, if you don't know who Art Laffer is, that's not just some rando dude that they found on Fox, like, oh, hey, who can we find to yell at minorities today, right? No, that's Art Laffer. He's the author of The Laffer Curve. That's the basically supply side economics. And the Laffer Curve is appropriately titled because it's a total joke. And the thesis there is, if you tax rich people too much, then you'll get less revenue for the government. That's not remotely true. It's been disproven 1,000 times, but it is very convenient. You just needed one, I don't want to say idiot, because they're all making money off of it, right? But you just needed one guy to make up economic theory. And then, because the Republicans don't care if it's true. They've never cared if it's true. By the way, neither do corporate Democrats. But mainly the Republicans and Reagan all relied on the so-called Laffer curve to say, oh, no, don't tax the rich. The rich are the beloved. Now, they need all of the money. They deserve all of the money, and we cannot tax them. But the poor, they don't deserve any money. They don't even deserve $15 an hour. minorities, young people. No, they don't deserve anything. And now, then think about, look, the guy has never made sense in his entire life. He's always been a useful tool for the wealthy and corporations. But think about how little sense he made in the middle there. He says, okay, these minorities are useless and worthless and so are the young, etc. But when they were not gonna earn enough skills to earn more than that. But wait a minute, if the minimum wage is $15, you can't pay less than that. So if you're gonna move up to a manager or to a different position, by definition, it has to be higher than that, right? And he's like, no, nobody will hire him. Why would nobody hire them? That doesn't make any sense at all. If you start at $7.25, the current federal minimum wage, and you work your way up, and as a lot of you know, you work at Walmart, you're gonna, if after a decade or more, you might be up to $8.75. But if you start at 15, you would work your way up to 16 or 17. So he says, no, magically the markets are not going to work anymore. No one's gonna hire anyone at $16, and they're all gonna fall out of the market and become hostile. But okay, now if we're talking about economics, none of this makes any sense. But they're gonna become hostile? What does that have to do with economics? Now you're just making stuff up.
No, I think that what he's referring to there is the obvious class divide in this country and the fact that people have in fact become hostile, and they should in fact become hostile, because we've been going along with this insane economic system that pits workers against one another. And I think workers are starting to realize, hey, maybe we need some solidarity, and maybe we need to focus our ire, our aggression, our frustration toward people like Laffer, who thinks that he's worthy of being paid well, even though he has clearly failed his way upward, right? Like there's hostility, and guess what? If this continues, that hostility will only continue to grow. It'll only continue to grow. And for all the people out there, I want to be clear about something. All the people out there, especially corporate liberals and at least some never Trump Republicans that I've seen on social media, it's real easy to be negative and insulting toward, let's say, conspiracy theorists, like the QAnon people, right? But do you understand why it is that these conspiracy theorists believe what they believe and refuse to believe anything, any argument that's made on corporate media? The reason why is because they lie to them, right? They lie to them over and over again, tell them, oh, you're poor, it's your fault. Oh, you're in a terrible situation with your medical bills, it's your fault. Pick yourself up by the bootstraps, you get no help. This is the way the system is. We're the greatest country in the world, even though we have literally hundreds of thousands of homeless people in California alone, literally children living out on the streets. All of these issues, by the way, as dumb as you might think QAnon believers are issues that are evident to conspiracy theorists, but they keep getting told over and over again that it's not the system's fault, it's not this rigged economic system's fault, it's their fault. It's their fault, and they're on their own if they're suffering. People like Laffer have led to the current political and economic climate that we're experiencing in this country today, period. That's just the fact of the matter. People like him have destroyed this country and continue to do so with their disgusting greed and corruption.
But I want to make an important distinction, because you're talking about a different hostility than he's talking about. So you're talking about people that make it $7.25. They can't take a single day off from work. I've said this 1,000 times because no one else in media says it, because they're all giant millionaires and they don't give a damn about you, right? At $7.25, the current federal minimum wage, you're gonna make $15,080 a year if you don't take a single day off. Okay,
it's insane.
It's no sick days, no vacation days, 40 hours a week. You have to work every day, the whole week, and you get just a tad over $15,000 a year, right? And now, if you go to $15 minimum wage, that's what Laffer is arguing against. You can make a little over $30,000 a year, and he says that's way too much for minorities.
They don't deserve it.
They don't deserve it.
But it's not just minorities, okay? He specifically said poor people, minorities, young people. Like, he's saying all these different groups. This isn't about various racial groups or various gendered groups. It's not about. This is a class struggle. Period. What he's referring to there is workers. Period. When he says the poor, he means everyone. right? He doesn't think that anyone in this country deserves a living wage, period. That's what he's really saying at the end of the day.
Yeah, and again, remember, this is the guy who said we should not tax the rich because they deserve more money.
Right.
Okay, so but getting back to the hostility point, you're saying, Anna, the people making between $7.25 and $15, or even more, making $15,000 to $30,000 a year, or et cetera, they're becoming hostile because they realize the system is rigged against them.
Yes.
And they are right. Whether they're right wingers or left wingers, it doesn't matter. They are right. Okay, the system is rigged against you. So, and we can show you, and we will show you even on this show, exactly how it's rigged against you through taxes, laws, regulations, fees, et cetera, right? But he's not talking about that. He's saying, if we pay them $15, which they're not worth, obviously, they'll eventually drop out of the workforce because they're useless, and then they will become hostile towards us. What he's saying is they're bums, and they're not gonna work if we pay them $15, and they're certainly not worth it, and eventually we're gonna fire them all, and then they're gonna get hostile because they're not making any money, because they didn't earn it like the rich. The rich earn and deserve everything, and these bums, these black people, these brown people, these young people, these poor people, these bums are gonna get hostile. Okay, first of all, if they're driven to hostility at all, if anyone is, it's because of comments like that, where you antagonize them to the nth degree after they've already suffered all that they have suffered. Okay, but the heart of his comment is they're savages. They're not gonna work, and then they're gonna get hostile because, poor people, violence is the only thing they understand. And that's always what they say right before they're about to commit violence upon you, okay? So that is as sick and disgusting a segment as you will see on Fox News, and that is saying a lot. And that is what they think of poor and middle class people in this country.
Yeah, I'm just really curious what he thinks failing corporations are when they need to be bailed out by the government. Like, what does he think about them? Because I would argue that those failed business owners are the real bums that need to be held accountable. But there's a two-tiered system, right? When it comes to government help, when it comes to this type of commentary, when it comes to ordinary people, when it comes to workers, the very people who generate the revenue for these corporations. Oh, they're bums if they're just asking for decent working conditions and decent pay. But for corporations that fail, the corporations who have this entire system backing them up, ensuring that they succeed, but yet they still fail and need to be bailed out by the federal government, they're not bums, right? I'm sure they're not bums.
Well, I don't know what Art Laffer's position was at the time, but I can certainly guess it, but I'm not going to, because let's stick with the facts here. Fox News, when the banks crashed the world economy in 2008, who did they support? They supported the banks. They pretend to be populist. And what did they say? They said, because we covered on the show, like, oh my God, these poor bankers, you still have to pay their bonuses. How else could we help them, help these companies get back to solvency? What do you mean? We help them get back to solvency by giving them billions of dollars, trillions overall when you add them all up. And they said, but we need their expertise. No, we don't. They're the guys who crashed it in the first place. But Fox News said, no, you must pay the bankers their giant bonuses, even if they're complete and utter failures. Now they bring on Art Laffer to laugh at the poor and the minorities and everyone else and go, they're not worth anything. They're not even worth $15. By the way, who agrees with them? Joe Manchin and 8 Democrats that voted with every single Republican in the Senate. They all voted no on $15 minimum wage. Joe Biden had his 2 best friends in the Senate, the 2 Delaware senators, vote no on minimum wage, $15 minimum wage. So you might get mad, and you should get mad at Art Laffer and at Fox News, but understand that a lot of corporate Democrats, and this is important, the entirety of the Republican Party, every single one of them are corrupt crooks who hate poor people and middle class people, who only serve the rich. And yes, those corporate Democrats, I don't care what any kiss ass of the establishment says, are same exact people as them. They vote no on your higher wages, and they say, oh, no. But press, don't criticize us. When the Republicans do it, they're bad guys. When Democrats do it, they do it out of principle. Principle of what? No, when you see Art Laffer talk like that, that's the same exact thing Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, Chris Coons, and so many other Democrats think.
Well, let's talk about the real bums in the US economy, and that's the corporate CEOs who don't pay their fair share in taxes, and now we have some details about the extent to which they're doing that. So, journalists over at ProPublica obtained 15 years worth of tax documents on the wealthiest tax dodgers here in the United States. We're talking about the Warren Buffetts and the Jeff Bezos of the world. And when you compare what their income really is and how small the percentage of taxes they pay, you get a sense of just how rigged this economic system is in their favor. Now, before I get to these specific details, I want to note that I say that the economic system is rigged to their favor because they get to skirt taxes legally. The system is set up this way, so they're not breaking any laws. But for the first time, we really have a clear look, a detailed look based on tax filings, what the extent of their tax evasion really looks like. So, as ProPublica reports, to capture the financial reality of the richest Americans, ProPublica undertook an analysis that has never been done before. We compared how much in taxes the 25 richest Americans paid each year to how much Forbes estimated their wealth grew in that same time period. So you're looking at the growth of wealth and the portion of that wealth that was taxed. And as you can imagine, it was a very tiny portion. According to Forbes, those 25 people saw their worth rise a collective $401 billion from 2014 to 2018. They paid a total of $13.6 billion in federal income taxes in those 5 years, the IRS data shows. Now that sounds like a lot, right? That's a staggering sum, but as they report, it amounts to a true tax rate of only 3.4%. So take a look at what you paid in your federal income taxes last year. I guarantee you it was more than 3.4%. And right now we're talking about the wealthiest people in the country. We're talking about billionaires who have not paid their fair share. So I'm just gonna show one quick graph and I'll open it up to you, Cenk. So this is a fun graph that ProPublica put together. And so it shows you how much the wealth has grown between 2014 and 2018 for each individual. And so for Warren Buffett, for instance, you see that his wealth during that time period had grown by a whopping $24.3 billion. And when it comes to his taxes, he only paid 0.10% toward taxes. Again, I guarantee you, if you look at your own tax filings from last year, you paid significantly more. You look at Jeff Bezos, his wealth grew by $99 billion between 2014 and 2018, and he paid less than 1% in federal taxes on those earnings.
Let alone the fact that his corporation, Amazon, oftentimes also paid 0%. So don't get it confused. The company pays nothing, then Bezos pays nothing.
That's right.
It's literally one of the richest companies in the history of the world, and he is the single richest man in the history of the world. And yet he's paying less than 1%, and you're getting your ass handed to you on taxes. In fact, I'm gonna give you more details on that in a second. So, and a comparison. Look, I want you to understand the context of this as always. Right now we're having a nonsense debate, a debate that Democrats are gonna lose anyway. Should we increase the top income bracket from 37% to 39.6%? The reason why it's a nonsense debate, and the reason why Biden is proposing it in the first place when he told donors that nothing would fundamentally change, is because even if it went to 39.6%, nothing would fundamentally change because they're not paying it. They're not paying any of those taxes. So it doesn't matter if it's another 2.5%. Yet the Republicans make a big deal out of, oh my God, the poor rich. Oh, the rich, how could you do this to our friends and allies? Look, I'm not exaggerating. The Republicans are fighting tooth and nail for that extra 2.6% that the rich aren't even paying anyway, okay? Now, by the way, let's be fair. There's a lot of stratification of the rich, right? Doctors, lawyers, accountants, if they are making it to the top bracket somehow, a lot of them will pay taxes because they're earning income, right? But if you're super rich, none of this matters.
Yep.
Okay.
None of it.
So it's all a joke, and the politicians know it's a joke, and they have this kabuki theater where they do fake fights, and then they let the rich get everything and pay almost nothing in taxes because the rich fund their campaigns. It's so simple. Not a single reporter in the country reports on it when they're covering politics. Thank God for ProPublica, which is independent and did a fantastic job here. Now we're gonna give you an infuriating follow-up in a minute about how the Biden administration reacted to this. But I want you to understand this fact that I want to tell you guys, okay? By the end of 2018, so they're looking at this time period, ProPublica explained that the 25 richest people were worth $1.1 trillion. That's just 25 people worth 1.1 trillion. How many Americans do you have to add up to get to that same amount of wealth? 14.3 million people. 25 people have the same wealth as 14.3 million people. Okay, that's one thing, but that's not the mind-numbing part. The part that's infuriating is those top 25 on their wealth paid $1.9 billion in this stretch that ProPublica looked at. I'm sorry, in 2018 alone, 1.9 billion. Okay, well then how about the 14 million Americans that have the same amount of wealth as those 25 guys? They probably paid a little bit less than 1.9 billion, but God, you know the rich should pay way more, right? You sitting? Average American, the 14 million combined, paid $143 billion in taxes. So the richest people in the country only paid a little less than 2 billion. You all paid 143 billion. 143 billion out of middle income Americans and poor Americans and all of the rest of us, okay? So this, when people say the system is rigged, the mainstream media usually jumps down their throat. Oh, conspiratorial. What do you mean rigged? It's rigged through the tax system, you morons, but they're not morons. They're all rich. Every cable news anchor is a multi-millionaire.
Yep.
And so, and it's not that they do it actively, like, oh, Cuomo gets together with Tucker Carlson, they high five about how they lied to the American people. No, they do it because they don't know anyone poor. Everyone they know is a millionaire.
They get taxed the same way as the rich do. And like, you gotta understand, there's just a significant difference in how earned wages get taxed versus how keyboard pushers get taxed, right? I'm talking about people who spend all day speculating on the stock market, right? Or who do investments. Capital gains gets taxed at a much lower rate. And what they do is they pit their losses through investments against their wealth made through investments, and through those deductions, they end up getting massive tax breaks. Like, the way they earn their money, if you can even call it that, is through these investments, through the speculation, and that's it. And the fact that that gets taxed at a lower rate than the actual hard work that workers put in to various companies to earn the revenue for those companies, to make sure those companies are up and running. Those wages get taxed, as you guys know, through the brackets that get reformed every once in a while, if you can even call it reformed. But it's just insane. It's insane that like what you earn through capital gains is like what, 15% taxed?
Now I believe it's 20%. And to be fair to the Biden administration, they claim they want to move it up to 39.6, but only for people making over $1 million, okay? Now, there's no reason why capital gains shouldn't be the same exact thing as your normal wages, okay? Taxed at the same rate. They say, oh no, that would discourage investment. Even Warren Buffett has said that's nonsense. No good investor would say, no, I'm not going to invest my money and make money because you're increasing my taxes a little bit. Of course you would continue to invest, otherwise you'd make no money, right? I mean, it's such an obvious lie. It's the most obvious lie of all time. And yet every Republican says it and half the Democrats say it. Now, so capital gains should be increased instantly, but I gotta be honest, I was a little, like the wealth tax makes sense in some ways, but then I'm worried about a couple of aspects of the wealth tax before when Elizabeth Warren introduced it and there was a big discussion about it early in the 2016 campaign, etc. But this story makes me think, oh, right away, wealth tax.
Yeah,
okay.
Of course.
And here's why, guys, and you can do different layers to it too. Because I get why the tax system is set up the way that it is in terms of realized gains. So let me explain that to you and let me explain why it creates too big a loophole. So they said, look, let's say that you bought some stock for $100 It went up to $1,000 or $1,100 to make the math simple. You made $1,000 in that scenario, right? But you didn't actually sell the stock, or you could do it in real estate, etc. But you didn't actually sell it, so you don't have the cash. So now it's much more important when it comes to, for example, real estate than it is stocks, because you could sell stocks pretty easily, but it's much harder to sell real estate. They're saying until you get the cash, you shouldn't have to pay the taxes because you don't have the cash. Now, if you're normal rich or beginning to get into that economic strata, then okay, that makes some sense, okay? But now you know what the ultra rich are doing? They're saying, okay, well, I got $100 billion sitting in stocks. I'm not gonna get any income. Why would I get it, right? I'm just gonna leave it there forever and ever and ever and never be taxed on it. And then if I need money, one of the things they can do, and sometimes do is they just borrow it. So instead of paying 37%, they borrow at whatever small thing because they're good for it. There's no question, right? Yep. You're gonna get a very low interest rate. And that way, and sometimes that could count against like paying that make them even pay less taxes, right?
Yeah, because they get a tax deduction for the interest that they pay on that loan.
Yeah, in some circumstances they do. So the bottom line is, it creates a giant loophole where they never ever sell anything, and they still have that same money that they can spend endlessly anyway. So, and now it is very hard to see an argument against the wealth tax. Let's say put it at a stratospheric number, above $1 billion, for every dollar above $1 billion, right? Are they really gonna say, oh no, man, this is gonna discourage me from working? I mean, if I'm taxed above $1 billion, oh my God, what was the wealth tax she proposed? 2%? So if you're Jeff Bezos and you're like, oh my God, my extra 99 billion or my extra 126 billion, I think that's where he is at now, is gonna get taxed 2% every year. Whatever will you do? You'll be just fine. So it's beyond outrageous how the system is completely rigged in favor of the rich. If you're super pissed about that, you are actually correct.
All right, we got to take a break. We'll be right back. Back during the social break here. Let me read some of the comments. Captain Corbo says, Laffer uses the poor in the same way that Biden talked about poor kids are as good as white kids. He did say that during the campaign. Yes, it was a slip up, but yes, it gives you his state of mind. It just does. And so the elite are all very similar in this sense. Eclectic Miscellanea, this is all in our member section. tyt.com/join. You could go through tyt.com/change now, because we're trying to bring positive change in the world. Wish us luck. Don't just wish us luck. Join us and help us make it. In fact, Bill Lockridge just did that by hitting the join button below on YouTube. That's another way to sign up. Anyway, Eclectic Miscellanea wrote in, I agree they don't deserve $15 an hour. They and every worker deserve at least $23 an hour, which is what the minimum wage would be if it actually kept up with inflation. That is true. There are some like Joe Sandberg who are pushing for $24 or $25 minimum wage in places like California, which has a much higher rent, housing costs, inflation, you name it. If it's $15 an hour in Florida or in other places, he makes the argument that it should be much higher and at least keep up with inflation in California.
I'm gonna go to super chats here. YTP Renewed made a great point. If they aren't worth $15 an hour, how did Denmark pay it? So I wish I'd made that point during the segment. So tons of European countries pay $15 an hour or more, including for their fast food workers, etc. And none of those companies went bankrupt. None of them did. And the people of Denmark didn't all of a sudden all become hostile and drop out of the workforce. Art Laffer is a complete and utter fool, but he's a very useful idiot for the Republicans. Jack Donovan says, it was great seeing Anna on the damage report this morning. A double dose of Salt Dragon is just what I needed today. Kevin C says, hey TYT fam, I got my first Pfizer shot today, so I guess I'm one of them people now. Another reason for the crazy Trumpers to hate me, and I'm okay with it. Yeah, God bless. Who cares if they hate you? Let the dumbasses do whatever you want. Make sure that you're safe and get the vaccine. Drink That OJ writes in on Twitch. Love TYT, thanks for always keeping it real. I subscribe via the main site and watch the show there, but I'm still coming back to Twitch to give you my Bezos bucks. Am I an American hero? I guess, no, not I guess, definitely. Thank you for doing that. That's wonderful of you, and it counts towards our Be the Change campaign. If you're a member on YouTube or on tyt.com, please do it on Twitch too, because it's free for you, but we get the revenue from it, and we appreciate it. Eldermine Pulse just gifted 5 subs, and Surapian, sorry, gifted 3 subs. Obi Mom Kenobi, of course, gifted 5 subs, and we got more for you when we come back. Back on TYT, Anna.
All right. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not pleased with Vice President Kamala Harris's speech in Guatemala, where she encouraged Guatemalans who are potentially thinking about migrating to the United States to stay in place and not come. Seems like AOC doesn't think that Kamala Harris deserves any cookies, and I agree with her. No cookies for you, I'm sorry. So the Biden administration keeps talking about how VP Kamala Harris is taking care of the migrant crisis, and she's going to Mexico, she's going to Guatemala to handle it. Except her way of handling it is essentially telling Guatemalans that they shouldn't do something that is actually legal in the United States, which is seek asylum. Let's watch.
I want to emphasize that the goal of our work is to help Guatemalans find hope at home. At the same time, I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come. We, as one of our priorities, will discourage illegal migration. And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back. So let's discourage our friends, our neighbors, our family members from embarking on what is otherwise an extremely dangerous journey.
But what about legal means of immigration? The legal means that Donald Trump had crippled under his leadership. Biden claimed that he was going to be different, but so far, I haven't seen a difference in the way that he's handled immigration. And AOC called that out, saying, first, seeking asylum at the US border is 100% legal method of arrival. Second, the US spent decades contributing to the regime change and destabilization in Latin America. We can't help set someone's house on fire and then blame them for fleeing. And look, we've talked about how US foreign policy has destabilized Latin American countries like Guatemala. I'll give you those details again, but this is a classic case of the US government pretending as if we're being victimized by something, when in reality, the very thing that we're complaining about is what we contributed to, is what we caused. Jake, what do you think?
So the Biden administration is unsurprisingly stuck in the 1990s. So Biden thinks that he's going to get credit from Republican and independent voters if he meets Republicans halfway on immigration. Now, to be fair to Biden, the mainstream media thinks the same thing. So they keep attacking Biden, not on all of his failed promises where he was going to be FDR 2.0. No, they love that he's failing on all of those. They keep attacking him from a right-wing perspective. They ask Lester Holt, ask Kamala Harris, have you been to the border yet? Have you done a photo op at the border? What kind of a useless question is that? Have you done the proper theatrics yet? The Republicans are displeased. Who gives a damn about the Republicans? They're not in charge, right? But Biden does care about them. So he sends Kamala Harris to go yell at people in Latin America. Don't come, okay?
It's ridiculous.
How many Republican votes you got from that? Zero. I don't know, we're never gonna get through to Biden. Now, it's obvious, we knew who he was from day one. The reason everybody voted for him because at least he wasn't going to end democracy. Okay, that was a very, very, very low bar. He cleared that bar and he hasn't been able to clear much since then. I don't care what any person in Washington says about how great he is.
He's not gonna save it either, that's for sure.
Well, he's not gonna save it if he doesn't do a goddamn thing unless the Republicans come back in charge. So now, let's mention the other part of it, which is that, man, did he stick Kamala Harris with political dynamite here, right? So she's gotta be pretty furious about it. There's no question that Biden told her to say, don't come. And now, I got no love for Kamala Harris. And so I know people, oh, how could you? She means so well. How do you know she means well? How do you know that? Why do you trust politicians that take corporate money? Like, no. I know they seem to be serving corporations and they seem to be going 3/4 of the way towards the right wing, but I believe she's such a good person based on nothing, based on theatrics. So does Kamala Harris have a similar position to Joe Biden? Yes. Does she like having to hold this bag of poop, which is the border crisis, so-called border crisis? No. Biden's like, oh, maybe you're thinking of running in 2024? Here's the goddamn border. My biggest problem from the Republicans. And so he thinks that's his biggest problem overall because progressives, who gives a damn about them, right? He goes, you go deal with it, and then you go yell at Latinos to not come, even if they have to flee violence that we partly created. And that's what she had to do there, and that's what happened.
No, you're right, that is what happened. And look, I know you weren't trying to provide any excuses for that speech she gave, but I also have absolutely no sympathy for any type of backlash that she's currently getting as a result of that speech. I'm tired of the apologists for Kamala Harris's behavior, not just as VP, but when she was a prosecutor in California, right? What can she do? I mean, this is just what the system is, and she had to operate under that system. And even though she was in this wonderful position of power where she could have actually changed the system, she decided to go along with it. But what could she do? No, I'm not buying it. Even if Biden sent her there, no one forced her to say the words, don't come. No one forced her to spread the same kind of talking points that the Trump administration did in regard to asylum. Obviously, there are legal ways to migrate to the United States. And what she said in that speech was a little too vague. Like, she mentioned illegal immigration at one point, but she's making it clear she doesn't want any of them to come. And for any US politician, whether they're Democrat or Republican, to utter those words, given what the US has done to Guatemala specifically in backing a coup in the 1950s, which destabilized that country, it's disgusting and it's wrong. Period. We have to take responsibility for what we've done in the United States in destabilizing other countries. These things aren't happening to us. They're happening because we were the catalyst that led to the crises that we're experiencing today. That's it, period. When climate change and extreme weather conditions happen, they're not happening to us. We're not victims. We played a huge role in making it happen. You get what I'm saying? Like, I'm tired of this, like, no, we're victims. What could we do? No, there's a lot we can do. There's a lot we can do. And it's first, take responsibility for what we've caused.
So I advocated for whatever it's worth, which is very little, for a Marshall Plan for El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. And so why? Because Marshall Plans work. It's the single most successful foreign policy action the United States of America has ever taken. When we rebuilt Germany, Japan, and that's not all. They also rebuilt Greece, Turkey, and many other countries after World War II. And so what it did was it turned our worst enemies And Germany, after fighting them in World War I and World War II, was by far the worst enemy the United States of America had ever had, right? We turned them into our top allies. And we turned them into economic powerhouses, which we then traded with, and we all got richer. And we took that shining example of what to do right, and then we threw it in the garbage. And so we said, oh, okay, I got a new idea. Let's just attack everyone. Let's bomb Iraq, let's bomb Afghanistan, let's do coups in Latin America and Africa over and over again. Let's steal their resources. And if they ever do a democracy and they say, hey, this is the people, the resources of the people, including Guatemala, let's crush their democracy and pretend we're fighting communism. Those are all facts. If you don't know it, you're ignorant. That's okay, I love you, go read up on it, okay? And so now what we could do is we could fix it. And one of the great things about fixing it is then you wouldn't have as much illegal immigration, because then their economies would. Do we have an outpouring of illegal immigration from Germany or from Japan?
Scandinavian countries?
No, because we help rebuild them. And they're great trading partners and they don't have to flee Germany. Last time, by the way, after World War I, we didn't do that with Germany. Instead, we crushed them. And what happened after that? World War II. So we already know what works and what doesn't.
Right.
And instead of Biden, a so-called Democrat, going down there and Kamala Harris and saying, guys, we got you. Okay, we're gonna have the courage to invest in these countries because we think it's gonna help us and you, right? They go down there and they yell at them.
Don't come.
Don't come, don't come, okay? And that's just stupid old Washington thinking by Biden and Kamala Harris. And guys, last thing is, please do nuance. I don't understand anybody in any camp that just never says, oh no, that my camp is never wrong. We've called out AOC before. We've very much called out Bernie. We've called out everybody that is in our so-called side, okay? It depends. What did they do? Did they fight? Did they not fight? Which policy were they for or not? But there's mindless people on all sides. I'm a Kamala Harris fan. So I think it's great to yell at Guatemalans. She's so great for yelling at Guatemalans. She's the best. Why do you do that? Why are you? And it's only because of this story that I'm picking on K Hive or whatever. But it applies to almost all the camps. They just shut off their brain. No, Biden is the best. Kamala Harris is the best. I'm not gonna think about it. No, Biden and Kamala Harris are the worst. I'm gonna help Trump. What? Just please do nuance.
I think the worst thing that voters could do is play into the very intentional cults of personality that both parties create in order to distract us from the issues that we should be critical of. And so there are no friends in politics. And I'm specifically talking about these people in positions of power. We're supposed to have this type of tug and pull relationship with them because they're supposed to serve our best interests. And if you have like this, if you fall into this like cult of personality culture where you think that like one politician or the other can't do any wrong, then you're not gonna be able to do what you're supposed to do as an active member of a democratic process. Hold them accountable, pressure them, and get what you want. Make them bend to your will, not the other way around. Anyway, we got to take a break, but when we come back, Rudy Giuliani's audio conversation with Ukrainian officials has been obtained by CNN. We have some of those clips to share with you and more. Stick around.
All right, back during the break here. Let's start with Twitch. Sofa King wrote in, gotta love TYT. Can we get some 10-month dabs? 10-month dab. Don't make me do that. Okay, but much love anyway. Melissa the Defender Dragon gifted 4 subs. You guys are awesome. Going to YouTube super chat. OK Pyres just wrote in, just like the stream and instantly felt my karma increase. That's a scientific fact. Hashtag facts. So thank you for doing that. We appreciate it. And thank you for the super chat. LJ Wombology wrote in, if Harris is trying to look strong for the right-wing voters, they don't care. She just looks weak to the ideological left while alienating the base. 1,000,000,000%, right? Smartest audience in the world. Speaking of the world, we're gonna go to Ed Wallet, and he says, sending much love and gratitude from the UK for TYT's fantastic progressive reporting. Truly astonishing the times we're in. Stay strong and stay safe. Ed, thank you, brother. We stay strong with your help. And guys, we're doing a Be the Change campaign, and we're going to, damn it to hell, we're gonna create positive change in this world, and we're gonna do it together. One of the things I wanna do is get the resources to build what I'm calling a change machine. You guys plug in the ideas, we build a process, the machine by which others can join your ideas, and we can actually make them come true in real life. So that's what we're gonna try to build for you guys. It's very ambitious, but I think we can do it. By the way, speaking of change, go to tyt.com/change to participate in that. But speaking of change, on Thursday, there is going to be a really great announcement. I guarantee that you're going to like, and it might involve someone in politics that you really like. And it might involve you guys. Okay, so make sure you're here for Thursday. If you can sign up for our newsletters, etc., to get all of our news about what we're gonna do, that makes a huge difference. And by the way, tomorrow on Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, Senator John Ossoff's gonna be on, so make sure you're checking that out. That's 2:30 p.m. Eastern. It follows right after Damage Report, and make sure you're subscribing, please, at youtube.com/indisputable TYT, indisputable TYT. All right, continuing with super chats, Yanni S writes in, Biden is horrible on foreign policy, economic policy, and immigration policy, but it's the people like TYT Jankanana that give me faith. Thank you, Yanni, you're the best. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. See, I did it in order. I'm so amazing, I'm such a genius. Writes in, we all love John's garbage person of the week on TDR, but I think we need a no cookies person of the week from Anna. Fair enough. She will take it under advisement. I can't speak for her. I think she'll take it under advisement.
Definitely.
Okay. And then I've got to read one that was so good from our member section. Oh, what's the antimatter? Wrote in, why didn't somebody tell Kamala's parents not to immigrate? Now that is powerful, and I wish I had made that point. That's why you guys are so smart. And I look down during the the stories, and sometimes I catch them, sometimes I don't. But I love you for making that comment. That is super strong and true. Parents are from India and Jamaica. So if somebody went and said to them, "Don't come, don't come," she would never have been vice president in the first place. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Jen and Anna with you guys. Anna.
CNN has obtained audio of the conversation that Rudy Giuliani had with Ukrainian officials when he was pressuring them to announce a sham investigation into the Bidens to help his friend Donald Trump out with his chances of getting reelected. So we have a few snippets of the audio that they obtained. It doesn't really change much in terms of what was reported previously. Much of this conversation had been reported, it's just that the audio hadn't been obtained. Now we have audio corroborating what was initially reported. So let's take a look at the first clip.
All we need from the president is to say, I'm going to put an honest prosecutor in charge. He's going to investigate and dig up the evidence that presently exists, and is there any other evidence about involvement of the 2016 election? And then the Biden thing has to be run out. I don't know if it's true or not. I mean, I see him bragging about it on television. And to me as a lawyer, it sounds like a bribe. Somebody in Ukraine's got to take that seriously.
In the Ukrainian presidential office, they took it very seriously. Then, as now, the country was fighting a desperate war against Russian-backed rebels in its east and heavily depended on US weapons and military aid to hold its ground.
So in that audio, Giuliani isn't just pressuring them to announce this sham investigation into the Bidens. He was also saying that they need to look into Ukrainian meddling in the 2016 election, which isn't a thing. That was Trump's conspiracy theory. There's never been any evidence to it, but nonetheless, he wanted Ukraine to take responsibility for 2016 meddling in the election that Trump won. Cenk.
Yeah, so there's two main asks. One is look into this conspiracy theory and announce that it's true. And second of all, by the way, even our own ambassador that's on the call and is very much an ally of Trump, et cetera, Volker, said, no, there's no evidence of it at all. And he had to say that in congressional hearings.
Yep.
And so it's obviously usual loony stuff from Giuliani and the right wing. But the second part of it is we want you to announce corruption investigation of Joe Biden. Now, Rudy thinks he's clever, as you heard in that tape. He says, now, I don't know if it's true. So he thinks maybe that'll protect him if they ever find out that he's telling the Ukrainians, you're not gonna get US aid in the middle of, by the way, a war, unless you help us bury our political opponent in this presidential race. But I said I wasn't sure he was corrupt. I just wanted you to publicly announce a corruption investigation, and then in return, you'd get a visit with Trump and maybe the aid that you're looking for. No, that's the actual bribery. And these guys are so over the top corrupt. And yeah, I just don't know that there's any justice in this country, though.
No, there isn't.
The rich and the powerful never face any consequences.
No.
If Rudy went to jail, I would be shocked. But if you had said that, I mean, I don't know how you would get in a position to say that. But if you committed something that's outrageously illegal, saying we're not going to send them, by the way, the money that Congress already appropriated, and we are legally bound to send to you, unless you help us politically by smearing our opponent, any person should go to jail for that. But the powerful get away with everything.
So there is another video that features the audio that CNN obtained. So here's a little more pressuring by Giuliani. Let's watch.
If he could make some statement at the right time that he supports a fair, honest law enforcement system and that these investigations go wherever they have to go, it's going to be run by honest people, that would clear the air really well. And I think it would make it possible for me to come and make it possible, I think, for me to talk to the president and see what I can do about making sure that whatever misunderstandings are put aside. And maybe even, I kind of think that this could be a good thing for having a much better relationship where we really understand each other.
By call's end, the Ukrainian side seemed to understand exactly what President Zelensky of Ukraine was expected to do to keep Washington on side. And on the call, at least, they agreed.
I'm sure that Zelensky will say that, yeah.
Yeah, good. Second, that would, believe me, Andre, that would be good for all of us.
Also, just excuse Giuliani for eating a sandwich while he was scheming. Turns out that scheming makes him very hungry.
Yeah. He's talking just like a mob boss there, and it's deeply ironic that many decades ago he used to prosecute mob bosses. Maybe he learned a thing or two. He's like that talk of like, and again, he thinks he's being clever, but the mob bosses talk just like that, and they get prosecuted anyway. That's not clever at all. Now, that would be good for all of us if you did that. Then I could talk to the boss. I could talk to Trump about your concerns, because we have concerns. Oh, now Zelensky's gonna do the thing that we're looking for. Well, then that would be good for all of us. And then we would have put aside our concerns. And then, then maybe, your concerns could be addressed. It's super obvious. And he's talking about the aid, because they brought up, hey, we need the aid. We're fighting the Russians here. We need the money,
right?
And we need to talk to Trump because Zelensky needed that for political reasons at home and for the aid, et cetera. And Rudy is clearly threatening him that unless you do exactly what we tell you, you're not going to get it. And by the way, guys, and the right wing is so easily gullible. If you threaten foreign governments on behalf of America, hey, withdraw your troops, or don't do something that's gonna hurt America, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you threaten them for your own benefit, make sure you do false corruption charges on my political opponent, that is illegal. That is using US taxpayer money and endangering our national security for your own personal benefit.
Now, again, we don't know what this new evidence will result in. In fact, as you probably know, Giuliani is currently being investigated. His home and his office was raided fairly recently. And as CNN reports, there is an ongoing criminal investigation into Giuliani and his Ukraine dealings, including whether he violated lobbying laws while coordinating with ex-officials who gave him dirt on the Bidens, who allegedly gave him dirt on the Bidens. We still haven't seen it, by the way. The federal inquiry ramped up when the FBI raided Giuliani's home and office in late April. It's unclear if this call with yearbook is part of that investigation. And so that's the other thing, the dirt on the Bidens. So Hunter Biden working for Burisma, in my opinion, was an issue. I don't think that he should be working on the board of a foreign gas company. So that by itself is a problem. It's not illegal, but that type of nepotism, clearly he wasn't an expert and had no real purpose in that role. Clearly he got that position because of who his father is. Like, that isn't illegal. But all of the other allegations coming from the Trump campaign, coming from people from Rudy Giuliani, coming from, right-wing outlets like OAN, like, just you wait, we've got the evidence, it's gonna come out any day now. What's the evidence? Like, what has Hunter Biden done that's literally illegal? I would like to see it, and I'm open to it. I'm open-minded to it, but they have failed to deliver on that.
Really, right-wing media outlets failing to deliver on prophecy. Oh my God, we're gonna release the Kraken, and then you'll see all the voter fraud that happened in 2020. We're gonna release it. Where is it? Yeah, I don't know.
Now the right wing is pretending to be concerned about him allegedly using the N-word. I haven't seen it or heard it yet. If it exists, whatever. But like the right wing pretending to be offended by the N-word is just, it's the most hilarious thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, just shut up. Look, if black folks are and whoever else is offended by Hunter Biden using those words, they have every right to be offended, and that's between them, right? But if you're a right winger whose whole thing is, I don't want cancel culture, freedom of speech to be able to say the N-word to any black person I want. Can you believe Hunter Biden said the N-word? Shut up. Nobody believes you. You guys are all fools. Now, on Hunter Biden, yes, obviously the guy cashed it in his last name. He doesn't know anything about Ukrainian gas. Everybody knows that. And by the way, the mainstream media, when you deny that, like, oh, no, he didn't do anything. It's perfectly sensible for him to work at Burisma. No, that doesn't make any sense, okay? But Anna makes a great point. If you have evidence on him doing something illegal, unfortunately that's not illegal to cash in on rich people's names and powerful politicians' names. Just ask Meghan McCain.
Yeah, it's as American as apple pie. I mean,
no, but I'm serious. You tell me the difference between Meghan McCain, who knew nothing about news or politics, getting all of those incredibly rich offers from places like The View, making way more than Hunter Biden, right? Versus Hunter Biden not knowing about Ukrainian gas. So, do you think they hired Meghan McCain because she's the top political expert? Come on, don't be ridiculous. Let alone Anderson Cooper being the heir to the Vanderbilt fortune, and Tucker Carlson being heir to the Swanson fortune, and we can go on and on, okay? So, yeah, it sucks that rich and powerful people get more rich and powerful, but is there an actual crime? And all the people who pretend to be on the left and now crying about, oh, Hunter Biden's laptop, did you see he did drugs? Who cares? Who cares? You guys are a joke.
Absolutely. But look, to be fair, Donald Trump's son-in-law did provide peace in the Middle East.
Oh yeah, but they're not bothered by that. They're not. Oh no,
they're not.
Don't criticize anyone related to Trump. Don't do it. No,
you can't do that.
No.
Trump's. Don't touch them.
Sacrosanct, because all my Patreon supporters are right wing. Hey, he's not in office, and when he was in office, was it so bad? I mean, the Democrats could be just as bad. Hunter Biden's still laptop.
Oh, that felt so good. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, union delusion. There is a pro-Biden ad out. It was put together by a union. And I think it's ridiculous. You do not want to miss it. It's one of the most ridiculous ads I've ever seen.
Really? That's funny. Okay, apparently we might disagree because I kind of liked it.
No, the ad was great. It was full of lies. Anyway, don't miss it.
See.
Second hour, we'll see you in just a few minutes.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.